Ugh. Where am I? Oh yeah, I'm working the night shift. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and the new season of Doctor Who is finally upon us. Doctor Who Season 1 is releasing today at midnight. So yeah, here I am in the trenches. I'm pulling a graveyard shift. I'm working at this old pizza place. Can you believe it? Apparently I've got to look over it to see that people don't break in or something. I'm bored as hell and getting paid nothing, so got my tablet here. I'm gonna be watching Doctor Who to pass the time. Russell, can you please move Doctor Who over to a reasonable time in the day? This is miserable. Anyway, I'm hyped. I'm excited. Well, as excited as you can be before you've got to record for over 2 hours and then edit till 9 in the morning. This whole scheduling thing makes it really difficult to enjoy the show, but I will try my best. Speaking of which, as always guys, I am doing another community reaction video. I'm going to be going over your guys' responses to the latest episodes, thoughts, feelings, hot takes, etc. And if you want to be included, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. It can be as long as you want, as short as you want. You can leave multiple, it's all good. And also while you're at it, leave a like too, you know how it is. I'm going to be recording my full live reactions to the latest episodes, and those will be going up for the channel members. As always, thank you guys so much for the support. I can't wait to hop into the Discord later and see what we're all feeling. Oh damn, I'm getting excited guys. It's finally happening. New Doctor Who, and to celebrate I made this specially crafted, handmade, my Doctor Who bingo sheet. Let's see how I do guys. I'm gonna be ticking stuff off as we go through the new season and see how far we get to before we get a bingo. Feel free to make your own and join the journey along with me. But let's get on to the episode. I'm aching guys, I'm itching to watch the new episodes. I just can't wait. Can you wait? I can't wait. Hey wait, are these guys moving? So I'm gonna start right now. I'll pull up my tablet and I will see you on the other side. Okay, so I just finished watching Space Babies. It is now 1 AM. I am 1 of 2 down. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to bore you on just my thoughts on one episode. I'm going to give my brief first impressions, initial reaction, just literally just right after watching the episode 1 minute ago. I finished. I'm going to give all my thoughts on what I just watched, and then I'm going to skip ahead and I'm going to give all my thoughts on the Devil's Court and then both of them overall. But I do think it's important just before I go into episode 2 to get everything out of the way, because there's a lot here. There is a lot here. What I will also note is that it is now getting to the part in the night where I don't really want to be recording anymore. I want to be going to beddy buys. Russell T Davies, can you please? I know. Can you please see if you can figure out the schedule, man? Or at the very least, just not release 2 at the same time, because damn, man, it's rough out here. Yeah, it's a little dreadful that I'm gonna have to watch a whole other episode after this and then give all my thoughts on that too. My brain is already struggling to work, guys. But still, it was, okay, how do I say this? Space Babies. What were my thoughts on Space Babies? It was a strange episode, and I don't mean that in a bad way, not at all. Strange is good. It was a very unique episode in its presentation, in its tone, in its style. This is a very different era to the first Russell T Davies era. It is something new, which I was kind of worrying about wouldn't be the case, but no, this is definitely something new, and it's a style which I think some people will take a little bit of getting used to, but I can just say from episode 1, I think I like it. There's definitely a lot of really new things here. What I will say is the soundtrack is the familiar element that is what I imagine will keep a lot of people on board. If this was an episode, say, Sagan Akinola did the soundtrack for, I think a lot of people will be, I don't want to say less forgiving because that implies it's a really bad episode. I don't think this is a bad episode. But I think that if Murray Gold's familiar soundtrack wasn't there to kind of ground people into remembering, oh yes, this is Doctor Who, I think a lot of people would be looking at their screen, scratching their heads and being like, what is this? That isn't to imply that that is a bad feeling. I like when Doctor Who is unique. I've described this a million times before. I've talked about the subconscious interpretations people have of different eras of Doctor Who and how Doctor Who is ever changing and changes all the time and should be changing all the time. And I like how this era feels totally separate from not only what just came before in the Chibnall era, but basically everything that came before. This is a very new type of Doctor Who. The Doctor himself is very new. What I will say to its detriment is that the opening say 8 minutes of the episode. When I call the rest of the episode strange, I mean it in a good way, but when I call the opening of this episode strange, I mean it in a tonally confused way, let's just say. In my reaction, which I just recorded, I was left a bit, what's the word? It's 1 a.m, so I'm forgetting words, friends. Stunned at the abrupt change in tone, is that it? Whiplash. Going from happy to sad to the Doctor just randomly trauma dumping on his companion 3 minutes within meeting them. Very strange. I must say, I personally preferred the approach of previous Doctors to kind of keep that to yourself and to let the audience kind of, it does feel a little hand-holdy and pushy and forceful, especially with the music cues from Murray Gold. Going from happy to sad, just snap of the fingers. Another one of these moments happened at the very end of the episode where he said, "I can't take you to your mum." Then that kind of turned into a nice happier moment with Ruby Sunday returning to her flat and giving her found family mum, Carla, a nice big hug. That was a great moment. And I think that is actually the majority of the cons out of the way. By the time they land on the space station, I think everything that I disliked, and dislike very loosely, I'm using that word. By the time they land on the space station, I think everything that I objected to pretty much faded away. I mean, I didn't like that they had to drop just an F-ton of exposition right at the start because it's episode 1. I feel like it would have been cooler to kind of have the mystery of Doctor Who remain just a little bit intact. I understand why they did it, but it did feel a little abrupt to me and a little, I already know this is a really weird way of communicating this. That's just how I thought about it. But I did like how they set up the butterfly effect. That's going to be a clear thing going forward in the season. They did have a few callbacks to when Martha asks about the butterfly and it's like, well, what do butterflies ever do to you? That's a cool way of making the Doctor feel like the same character. Speaking of the Doctor feeling like the same character, Ncuti Gatwa's portrayal of the Doctor is vastly different to anything we've seen before in New Who. And in this case, maybe I'm calling it a little too early, but in this case, I am very happy with it because, how do I say this? I thought that there was a danger with Rusty Davies coming back and of course the massive success of the David Tennant Doctor that Ncuti Gatwa would just be a rerun of that or an attempt to capture that same magic. And while I don't think that the 11th Doctor is just another 10th Doctor, I think he's very different, and of course he is. I'm preaching to the choir here. But I did worry that the third Russell T Davies Doctor would be very similar to the second Russell T Davies Doctor, but no, it really does feel like a separate new incarnation. And as I mentioned, the show itself is so new, and this new Doctor is here to spearhead it. And it does feel like a very 2020s Doctor, for better and for worse. I mean, I understand that. The 2020s so far have been pretty bad, and culturally, of course, there is a lot of back and forth. Is probably the best way to put that. And so I understand how this Doctor in this climate might clash for some people, and I do understand. And I think where I stand is that I am willing to take it with open arms because there were so many times during this episode where Ncuti Gatwa just dazzled me. There were many times, especially at the start of the episode, where I was a little bit... feels more performative than natural is maybe how I describe it, but then it's just seamless, I feel like, and I really do just instantly buy that he's the Doctor, although I always instantly buy that every actor is the Doctor. I really like Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor. Maybe he's not like all-time favourite, but I mean, let's be real here, no one in New Who's ever coming into my all-time favourites. Ruby Sunday I thought was very good, very endearing in this episode. She's kind, brave, smart, quick, just a great companion, and they have the mystery box shadowing at the end. Speaking of which, we've got a new mystery box, guys. New mystery box alert. What is the snow? In my favourite sequence of the episode, we get a flashback to the church on Ruby Road, and inexplicably it starts snowing indoors. I thought it was shot beautifully, and I thought it looked awesome. Looks stunningly cool. I do like that sequence in Church on Ruby Road. It's my favorite part of that episode, and ironically it's my favorite part of this one too. And so yes, what I really want to reiterate as my main takeaway from this episode is that Ncuti Gatwa was firing on all cylinders. Great emotion from him, great performance from him, very funny, lots of really funny lines, lots of really quotable moments, still keeping up that infectious energy. This might be my favorite performance from him so far. And there are many other things that I want to talk about on this episode, but those are just my base thoughts. Stick around folks, because we're talking about episode 2 now. And that's a wrap. That is both watched. 2 out of 2, both done. We're 2/8 of the way there to the series finale already. What an adventure. What do we all think, guys? I think I'm too tired to properly appreciate these episodes. I'm definitely going to have to watch them again. I do think it's very tragic the way that these episodes were released, because especially in the way that that episode, The Devil's Chord, just ended, I felt like maybe I shifted into psychosis. Did that ending actually happen? Did we randomly have a random loud dance number at the very end? I think I would have been able to appreciate that more if I wasn't so unbelievably tired, and it has been a long one. But you guys aren't here to hear me moan. What did I think of the episodes? Okay, so before I move on to The Devil's Chord, let me go over a few stuff that I refrain from talking about in Space Babies. The main one, of course, being the social commentary that I thought was quite well done. It also helps that I agree with the message that they're trying to send about. There was a certain ruling in the United States to do with reproductive rights, if you guys remember. That would have taken place around when this episode was written. That is very clearly what Space Babies is talking about, and it's talking about babies who are left alone with no parents to look after them, or inadequate parents to look after them. I thought that that social commentary was really well handled. It was not overbearing. What I would say was overbearing was a lot of the editing choices, a lot of flashbacks to stuff that already happened in the same episodes, a lot of flashbacks, stuff that happened at the start of the episode. We obviously could not have forgotten, and you're just reusing stuff to either pad out runtime or to maybe make the flow of the episode feel better. Either way, it's a little patronizing to the audience. We did not forget what happened like 5 minutes ago. I think it worked well with the Church on Ruby Road one, because of course that sets up the snow mystery box, which of course gets even more of a dimension added upon it in The Devil's Chord. But just before we move on to The Devil's Chord, because obviously hot off the heels, I just watched that one 3 minutes ago, so obviously I want to talk about it. But just before we move on, my final point on Space Babies, what I think I really loved about the episode is just how well crafted and imagined and developed the world of the episode is, because each episode of Doctor Who, it's kind of like you go into your own world and they have to create a whole background universe. Especially when you go into Classic Who, what you really begin to appreciate is how every single couple of weeks they would create a whole new universe with all new characters, all new cast, a whole new environment. Of course, apart from in the third Doctor's era, which I think was part of its strength, is that it could just flesh out Earth so much. But even then, Unit HQ was constantly changing with constantly new environments. But a lot of the adventure of, say, the fourth Doctor's era would be just create a really deep and detailed world. And in Space Babies, I was a massive fan of the design of the spaceship. I loved all of the world building about the different languages, the swipe to show the TARDIS's telepathic circuits. There's a lot of really interesting stuff. They're really bending all of the rules, which I understand some people might find annoying. I think it's pretty cool because we're so far into Doctor Who at this point. We're in series 14. I know they want to call it season 1, but we are 14 series in. If we can't break them, well, not break, I mean, because they don't technically break many of the rules, they're just really bending them. That seems to be the theme of this series, is they're bending the rules and everything. They're literally high concept ideas, especially moving into The Devil's Chord with the idea of Maestro. But just before we get into that, on Space Babies, the Bogeyman, I think a lot of us called that the Bogeyman would be made up of literal bogies. When it clicked in the episode, for me, I was very happy. It's a predictable episode, but definitely not in a bad way. It's predictable in the perfect way, in that you see everything that's coming like a second or two before it happens, which means that everything is adequately set up and you don't feel like anything comes out of left field, apart from the snow, I guess. But it's a very well plotted episode. The world is really rich and incredible. The design of the spaceship is really cool, and the way that there's the top decks, the bottom decks, and then there's the little side bit. All the cameras, it felt like I was in Five Nights at Freddy's. Girl, you like Five Nights at Freddy's.
I find that hard to believe because, girl,
you
be like, you like Five Nights at Freddy's.
What does that mean?
All the cameras, there were some really great fun chase scenes. The pace of the episode is practically perfect after you get past the first 8 or so minutes. Those 8 minutes, I don't know if I want to keep ragging on them, because I imagine as I rewatch the episode more and more, I will appreciate those 8 minutes more and more. But on first watch, they were just a little jarring and disorientating because of the massive exposition / trauma dump that really could have been naturally spread out between these 2 episodes. I don't think these 2 episodes were meant to be released together. Number one, because there's a massive time jump between them. There was a 6-month time jump between them. And also because finishing this at 2 a.m, there was a massive dance number for the last couple of minutes. Actually, I think it was the last 3 minutes, not even just 2 minutes, the last 3 minutes of the episode with Murray Gold. Murray Gold was in there, that was very cool. But I couldn't appreciate it, and the song was actually giving me a bit of a headache, but that's because it's 2 in the morning. If I was watching that at 6 p.m, I think I would have loved it. Maybe. I don't know how I feel about the song. Again, it is 2 in the morning. I know, I'm all over the place, guys. But anyway, just to put one final last nail in the coffin for Space Babies, my positive review on Space Babies, so I don't know why I use such a morbid analogy. But I love the design of the spaceship, the way the whole world is crafted. It all makes sense, which is nice. Or at least it makes sense in the way where if you think about it, it makes sense. Maybe if you think about it hard enough, it wouldn't make sense. A lot of the stuff is all set up and paid off. Good writing. The baby, the effect on the baby is terrible, but I don't really care. There were some really nice interactions between the babies and the characters. Sometimes they're annoying, but they're babies, right? Sometimes babies are annoying. Brilliant set design, like really damn cool. Well executed concept. Definitely a very well directed episode. Great comedic bits. I'm definitely a big fan of Space Babies. Not my favorite episode of all time. Originally I was kind of enjoying it about as much as I was the Star Beast, but I think I now enjoy it a little more than the Star Beast. And now with that out of the way, don't worry, I will give ratings at the end, but with that out of the way, let's talk about the Devil's Chord, because oh my god, there is a lot to talk about. Number one being the Beatles, which I found it absolutely hilarious when they started playing their song, and it was ass. It was god awful, and I don't know why that tickled me so much, but it was so damn funny. They are trash! The episode begins with a cool scene. It's an okay scene where Maestro first comes on the scene. A bit of a dry they-them joke. Can't hate, it's just cheeky, right? Like, it isn't meant to be that deep. I imagine some people are going to be pissed off about that, and that's going to be so tiring. It wasn't that funny, but it wasn't a big deal. Come on, guys. I don't know why I'm asking the most childish part of the fandom not to be childish. Seems like a bit of a fruitless endeavor, don't you think? But anyway, that then transitions us into Maestro playing the first opening notes of the titles, which is something I think I would have appreciated more if it wasn't so early in the morning. I just couldn't force myself to get hype about that. It's a neat thing, I guess. There are a lot of moments in the episode which I think are marred by me watching it so early in the morning, because I kept thinking, oh, that's neat, and then barely reacting at all. There were some parts of the episode I really loved, by the way, and I'll get to them, but let me just go in chronological order. I also liked Henry Harbinger. That kid was great. He did a great job. Really reminded me of the kid from Sarah Jane Adventures, and in fact, Maestro in general kind of reminds me of a villain from Sarah Jane Adventures. I don't really know how I feel about Maestro. I'm gonna say that they're an objectively worse version of the Toymaker. That doesn't make them bad. It just means that we're stepping down from something that was very good to something that is significantly less good, but definitely not bad. Maybe I'll warm up to it. There were some really good moments, which we will get to. But the initial movement to the 60s was very cool. Some nice shots here and there, some great moves with great vibe, atmosphere, funny jokes. As I mentioned, the terrible music being the highlight for me. And then we talk with the Beatles. We have the great foreshadowing of the holy note at the very end, and also this really cool sequence of the slow-mo falling and then Maestro's face appearing in all of them. The effect was a little bit weird. It kind of reminded me of in Harry Potter 3, I think it is, when you see the crystal ball giving the prophecy. It's a pretty weird effect in that movie as well, but of course that movie came out a long time ago. But still, that was definitely very cool. And then we head up to the roof, which I really like the roof shots. I think it just looked very pretty. And we mentioned Susan. Susan mentioned. There was also a Rani mention in Space Babies at the very start. I didn't mention it because it's not noteworthy. But the Susan mention basically guarantees that Susan is going to be an important part of the series, because they aren't subtle with the stuff that they're setting up, and that was definitely not a subtle setup. In fact, I think the way I would describe these two episodes as a whole is not subtle. That doesn't mean that they're bad, doesn't mean that they're not good or fun or enjoyable, but they are definitely, most definitely, not subtle. Maestro then comes out and chases the Doctor and Ruby. Maestro does the signature giggle, the ha 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 ha, which I loved. As I mentioned in my last video, I think that's already an iconic part of the show. It's so good. It's such a genius idea. I mean, what I love about this era is it is Russell T Davies even more secure in himself than he was in his original run. It feels like a continuation of what would have happened if Russell Davies kept going, but also with the spark breath of life. It's so different, but also we can rely on Russell T Davies' massive ingenuity and clever brain. A lot of people have asked me what do I think of Russell T Davies running, because a lot of people's opinions on him have fallen due to the cycle of showrunner hate and new thing bad. And I think that if Russell T Davies wasn't in charge, I would not be positive about this new era whatsoever. I actually think he's the main thing keeping me positive, which is most certainly the difference between me and most people. But I love him, and I think his writing is amazing, and I think both of these episodes showcase incredible skill and mastery in writing Doctor Who specifically. The scripts here scream of experience. They aren't really making rookie errors. I think that the start of Space Babies was probably the weakest overall, but I imagine that there were Disney pressures there. A lot of people in boardrooms saying, you've got to give more exposition, you've got to say he's the last of the Time Lords. A lot of that spam as much information at the first 5 minutes like it's a Mr. Beast video. But anyway, back to the Devil's Chord. The giggle as Maestro emerges is just so masterfully done. As 15th Doctor runs, you see the fear in him, which is awesome. Now, the 15th Doctor has been fearful twice in 2 episodes, so it's slightly losing its novelty. Of course, it was really well handled in Space Babies. I think the question, why did I run, is so good. It's a really great way of mixing character and mystery and intrigue. Oh, sorry to keep coming back to this, but I also think the sequence where the Doctor saves the bogeyman is very good. I'm sure I'm going to be talking about these episodes in a lot of detail as the week progresses, but that's just what I'm thinking right now. And then the Doctor and Ruby, they hide in the basement. The Doctor uses his get out of jail free card, the sonic screwdriver, to get rid of all the sound. Very cool sequence. They're then saved by the bell, and that leads us into the Pyramids of Mars sequence where they go to the present day Earth. I think Ruby Sunday actually quotes Pyramids of Mars directly. Says the world doesn't end in 1963, and then Sarah Jane says the world doesn't end in whatever time period Pyramids of Mars are set in. Guys, it's 2 a.m. Either way, I know it's a direct quote from something. If it's not that episode, those lines have definitely been uttered before. But speaking of prose, we then reach the highlight of the episode for me, which is when we do go to the present day and Maestro reappears and everything goes back. It becomes a stage and the plot is revealed, and I think it's a very visually engaging sequence. I think it's a very stunning sequence, and I think it also works well with everything that's set up before. This is such a geniusly plotted episode. Deceptively simple could also be another phrase to describe these 2 episodes, maybe the series as a whole. I don't think these 2 episodes were meant to be seen right after each other. If anything, it feels like Space Babies was meant to come out 1 week after Church on Ruby Road, and then The Devil's Chord was meant to be episode 1. But I love the sequence where it talks about what happened and how that was foreshadowed earlier in the episode and why Maestro is doing this. The dialogue here specifically was exquisite. Mwah. And then we return to the past for the final confrontation at Abbey Road, which had another massive highlight of the episode and the main thing that got me hype, which was when Ruby Sunday is all tied up and they start playing the song from Church on Ruby Road. And the reason this intrigued me is because there was not 1 but 2 fourth wall breaks before this moment, and then there's a third one at the end. They are definitely setting up some fourth wall breaking shenanigans for the finale. I mean, unless they just randomly felt like breaking the fourth wall 3 times in one episode for no damn reason, which could be a possibility. But anyway, the reason why them playing that song from the church on Ruby Road intrigued me so much is because it implied that that music was bound to Ruby Sunday in a way that meta-contextually the non-diegetic music, which is what the 15th Doctor mentions literally, is somehow attached to Ruby Sunday, implying that Ruby Sunday in universe is a character, which also ties in with Space Babies now I mention it. And anyway, what the point I'm trying to make is that in universe Ruby Sunday might be a character in a TV show, and that TV show might be Doctor Who, because we're breaking the fourth wall all the damn time in this episode, and we had the god of music. Maybe they'll be the god of television, who knows? And that stuff is just so intriguing. I really enjoy that. I think it's really damn cool ideas to play with. It is really damn late, but wow. I really enjoyed both of these episodes. I loved all of the themes. I would say the social commentary in both episodes is well handled. I think that there are a few nitpicky flaws, but overall definitely 2 very enjoyable episodes. There is another fourth wall break at the very end where the Doctor says you've always got to end on a twist, and then gives a wink at the camera. Maestro also gave a wink at the camera. The Beatles saved the day with the holy chord, and they say the one who waits is coming. Another mystery box. There's still snow, more snow. There was also rain inside. Is that connected to the snow? Who fucking knows? Was that scene even real? Did I imagine it? But either way, a lot of really interesting ideas played around with. Very beautiful episode as well. I thought these both very well directed, but especially The Devil's Chord is just a really sleek looking production. I would give a round of applause to everyone involved in the production of these 2 episodes. I would say it is definitely an improvement on David Tennant's first episode, New Earth, but probably not as good as Smith and Jones or Partners in Crime. Of course, those 2 episodes also don't share the responsibility that Space Babies has, which is the first ever episode of a new Doctor Who. And The Devil's Chord was just brilliant. It was a satisfying sequel to The Giggle. Not the best episode of all time. I think they both suffer from being 45 minutes long. Again, I'm going to keep saying this. If this season was 16 20-minute long episodes, god damn, you kidding me? We'd be in business, folks. But anyway, that's wrapping up my initial reviews, first impressions, 2 a.m. finish, thoughts, reaction to Space Babies and The Devil's Chord. And I'm going to give Space Babies a 6.5 to 7 out of 10 as my initial impression, all subject to change, remember that. And I'm going to give The Devil's Chord a 7 to 7.5 out of 10. I can't really decide. Either way, both of them are very good. Thumbs up. How do I even end this video? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you want to be a part of the community reaction video. Remember to leave a comment below. Thank you so much to the members. The reaction videos that I just recorded should be making their way up shortly. And thank you so much to Kyle Reese. You are the king. Phew. Made it through the night. And I will see you in the next one.